Okay, so let's look at Piper. Piper makes bracelets, and you work as an accounting technician in their finance department. You have the following information. The material cost for a bracelet is 24. Fixed production cost is 252. Selling price is 100. That's the volume we're going to push. And labor is variable, 40,000 hours, and you're paid £8 per hour. Let's jump in. So revenue, we have 20,000 units at a price of at a selling price of 100, giving us a total 200 and 3 zeros. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2 million. Right, just change my pen color because we're dealing with materials. Just because it's different, sort of the costs. Materials, same thing, 20,000, and it's costing you £24 a bracelet. So 24 and 2 is 48. 0, you have 480,000. Labor, we're told you're paying £8 a labor hour. So that's 8 times the 4, and that's 32. That's 320,000. Then we have this fixed production cost of 252,000. There is no one-off profit here. There's nothing. It's just sort of, I don't know why that's even in the table, to be honest. These are all the costs I can see. So therefore, my total profit at the moment is the 2 million minus the 480,000 minus the 320,000 minus the 252,000. That gives me 948,000. 948,000. Yeah, that's it. And we're done. Right. Now we have, I just want to break down the information a little. They're asking us, what is the contribution per unit? Well, you were selling for 100, weren't you? And your material was 24 material. So your labor, I think, is the slightly tricky thing here in terms of just understanding what's going on. Remember that you're making 20,000 units with 40,000 labor hours, which in effect means that you're using 2 hours to make each unit, aren't you? 40,000 hours to make 20,000. So that's 2 hours each unit. So 2 hours each unit, in effect, charged at 2 hours each unit, in effect, charged at £8 an hour is £16. You have a cost of 16. So in effect, you have material 24 and labor 16. So in effect, that you have 100 minus 40, which gives you your contribution per unit at 16. I think there's a slight error here. This should really be C over V, really the contribution over C over S ratio is where they were really going with this. So the C over S ratio, because I've been looking for this P over V, I'm thinking maybe in the textbook, but in your exam it's clearer that it's a contribution to sales ratio. And the contribution to sales ratio really is 60, isn't it? You have 60 as your contribution, 60 over 100, and your contribution to sales ratio is 60 over 100, and therefore that is 0.6. Right, 0.6. Now the question says, what is the break-even sales volume? Well, let's just kind of think about this. We know that to break even, we need to cover our fixed costs of 252,000. And we know that at break even, contribution is equal to break even, right? Contribution is equal to fixed costs. So contribution is equal to 252,000 at break even. And if you're getting a contribution of £60 on each unit, therefore, if you think about it, you need to sell 252,000 divided by 60, because you're getting £60 on each unit. So your break even volume, if you like, is 252 divided by 60, which comes down to 252,000 divided by 60, and that comes down to 4,200. So you have 4,200 units. Right, and that's that bit there. Then the next part of this question goes on to expand a little. It tells you in the coming year, material costs are going to increase by 15%. So I'll just do that very quickly. That's 24 times 1.15. That's going to increase. It tells us 24 times 1.15 is equal to 27.6. It says that fixed costs are going to increase to 504. That's great. And then it tells us that in line with high quality, selling prices will increase to 120. That's great. Um, and it says, despite the more premium product, the selling prices is expected to cause sales to fall to 16,000. So we're going to go from 20,000 all the way down to 16,000 units. Now, this is interesting. It says the new process is more complicated. So overall, labor hours are not expected to change. So we're still going to have 40,000 labor hours, and the wage rate is forecast to stay the same at £8 in making 16,000 units. That's what they're telling us. It's complicated, so nothing's going to change. Ordinarily, you would expect a fall in labor hours because you're making less units, right? But that's not going to change. So you're going to have 320,000 here over 16,000 hours. So the new cost of you're still going to be using 2 hours to make the item, but the new cost of an hour is 320,000 divided by 16,000, which takes us to £20 an hour. Sorry, let me just be clear about that. Let me just do myself. Sometimes my math is 40,000. Sorry, 40,000 hours. Sorry, let me just get that very right. Here we are. So what we have here is, what did we have? We had, labor, 320,000. Yeah, 320,000 divided by 16,000 units, or should I say, because it takes 2 hours, so more 16,000 units times 2, if you like, because that's the total number of hours, right? So I should really be saying 320,000 divided by 16 times 2, because I'm interested in the cost per hour. It doesn't really matter. And that's equal to £10 an hour. £10 an hour, it takes 2 hours to make. So it's the same thing, really, 20. I just missed the beat there for a second. So, so therefore, what do I have? My revised contribution now becomes, I have 120 minus my new material cost of 27.6 plus 20, because that's the new, if you like, cost of doing this, isn't it? So I have here 120 minus 27.6 minus 20, which is equal to 72.4. So my revised contribution is 72.4. Okay, right. So it says the break-even sales volume again here with an overhead of 504,000 and a revised contribution of 72.4, which is literally what I did last time when you saw me compare. Because at break-even, contribution is equal to fixed costs. I'm making £72.40 on each. Therefore, 504,000 divided by 72.4 is, I'm going to round that up to 6962 units in order to break even. So the margin of safety is, what is our budget? So my break even is 6962. I intend on selling 16,000 units. So the question is, how far would 16,000 units have to fall by to get to the break even of 6962? I will subtract that from 16,000, and I will divide that. That number of units is 9038, or say 9039. 9038, forgive me, and I will divide that by the 16,000. Divided by 16,000. Remember, it's a percentage, and so I have 56%. So pretty strong margin of safety. Right, and the final part of this is quite, you just have to think about things a little here. It says that they want to maintain profit levels at the very least at the same levels as last year. So the question here is, what was profit last year? 948, 948. Now remember that how this works is this: you have 948,000. If this is going to be your profit, then you have this fixed cost that you would take away, and then you have revenue and you have variable costs, right? You have revenue you have revenue, you take away variable costs, you get a figure, you take away your fixed cost, you get this thing. So in a way, you could think of it like this: your fixed cost of 504,000. So to get closer to revenue, because that's what varies, I need to sort of, whatever I get here has to be a combination of this sort of profit and fixed costs. I need to go backwards. So first of all, I need to get a total contribution before fixed costs, a total contribution, right? Just in general, of 948,000 plus 504,000. First of all, just to start this discussion, 948,000 plus 504,000, and that's equal to 1,452,000. So this has to be my total contribution. Total contribution. Now you want me to do this. It says here the sales volume will not change from 16,000 units. So I can tell you what the contribution has to be, if you like, for each unit. So the contribution for each unit, if it's going to be from 16,000 units divided by 16, brings us to £90.75. So my contribution must be £90.75. And contribution is, I suppose, selling price minus your variable costs. Well, I know what my variable costs are. My variable costs were 20, I calculated those earlier. My variable costs were £27.06, and the £20. So selling price minus these two things give me 90.75, which technically mean that my selling price is 90.75 plus, of course, these two things. Yes, these two things. So 90.75 plus 90.75 plus 27.6 plus 20, which is equal to 138.35. So in a way, I think this is a good question as well. It really does pull you apart a little in trying to understand these relationships between changes and moving between new profit, if you like, and this sort of thing. Yeah. So the problem, of course, I guess the question here is what happens when you change your selling price. Currently, your selling price is 100 and 100 and where was initially your selling price was, we found out, was it 100? And just go back, sorry, I'm just going back to the question. So if you remember, we started off with a selling price of 100, and what we're really seeing here is a situation where there are some efficiencies coming through, but the cost of labor is still pretty high. So if you're trying to maintain that profit, you're going to have to increase your selling price. But the question here is that are you a price taker? What is the competition saying? So the chances are that you might lose customers, and by increasing your selling price, generally the argument is if you increase your selling prices, generally your demand falls. So you might not be able to make those 16,000 units. That's the first problem. And if you don't, then I suppose your margin of safety is pretty big, but you are running a risk that you do not meet that you don't break even. So the problem with selling prices is that increased selling prices, demand will fall, and there's a risk that you don't break even in general. That's what I think. Let's just see what let's see what they're thinking. The current forecast will lead to fall in demand. It is likely you'll maintain demand at 16,000 if you like, if these selling prices increase by over 38% for their region. So they've put some numbers in, which is good. But I think that's the key point here is that you can see that an increase in the selling price, and you can actually calculate that. If you can see that, you can see that the key argument here is that you will see a fall in demand there. Okay, right, and that's how you work with that one.